You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. We talk a lot about mindset and paradigm shifts and all kinds of inner work. Today's expert is going to really dial that in for us because he is an expert on what he calls the inner stance. I'm speaking with Gore. He is a personal coach for a broad range of clients. He helps people with business, relationships, success, leaderships, transition, and transformation. And according to Craig, the best way to build a successful business is to refine, change, and focus on your inner stance. So let's bring Craig into the conversation and find out more about that particular mindset, that viewpoint. What is the inner stance and how can we use it to build the life and the business that we want? Craig, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you for having me.
Now, you on your website, you say that you are not a life coach. Explain why that is and what is the distinction there by positioning yourself that way.
Sure. So I'm a personal coach, and I think life coach can have the connotation that, you know, I'm a coach that maybe might not have as practical an application as another type of coach. Life coach, I'm not just a coach about life. I'm a coach for all things. Mm-hmm. And my clients are people that have a broad range of challenges and a broad range of areas. As it goes, Ralph, in my experience in all these years, I've never found a fix to help a client with that wasn't an inside job. Mm. So insofar as that goes, I guess you could call me a life coach. I just find it perhaps a bit limiting and sometimes a little bit cliche.
Yeah. So you work with people in a variety of situations, including business, relationships, leadership. You talk a lot about the inner stance, and that's what we introduced you as. I want to find out more about what that is, what that means to you, and how you work with people, helping them to refine that. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started? I know you've got a business background, but you got interested in coaching. I'd like to hear more about that journey. What got you started doing this?
Well, my businesses have always been service businesses. I started out as a broke musician after college, and I got into a service business to support my habit as a musician. And one service business gave rise to another service business, and I eventually ended up as a contractor and doing business in the millions. But, you know, life gets in the way, right, Ralph? Mm-hmm. We get stressed out. We get overcommitted. We get strung out. We get scared. I mean, there are challenges that come with running a big business on your own. And so in response to that, I began to look at the things in my life. Instead of working harder and killing myself, I began to ask different resources on how I could improve the quality of my business and just calm down because life gets busy, it gets stressful.
Yeah.
So I had a teacher starting at about 30 years old, and she taught me how my mind and my thinking and my feelings worked. And slowly but surely, as I began to calm down and realize more success in my life and start to feel more comfortable and content, people started coming to me and asking me for help. So I started coaching on the side because people wanted to know what I knew.
Isn't it interesting how we don't necessarily start out as wanting to be a coach or a consultant, but we achieve mastery in a certain area of life or business, and then it's like people they gravitate to us, and suddenly we find ourselves in a position of influence and leadership, and being able to help people with something that we've developed some skills around. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and who do you help? Who is your ideal prospect?
Well, I help people like myself who usually my client is busy, usually successful in some arena of their lives, and they're trying to find a solution to a particular problem they have. So, for instance, I have a friend who's in a Grammy award-winning band that I've known for 30 years. These guys tour all over the world, and they make millions of dollars. Well, one of the members of the band, apparently, for the rest of the members of the band, is very difficult to deal with. So one day we're sitting, talking, and I said, do you mind if I give you a little piece of advice? This guy's a dear friend. He's staying at my house because he's getting ready to go on the road. He lives in Europe. And I said, well, why don't you try this? So next thing I know, the following Tuesday, the whole band is sitting on my sofa. The whole band, the road manager, the roadies, the assistants, everybody's sitting. What do we do next? And I ended up, establishing long-term relationships with these guys as my clients. So what they end up finding out is they have a problem in their outside world, and eventually what they come to, Ralph, and I think you'll agree that usually the long-term answer is a shift in your own awareness so that you can have access to the creativity and the resources and the inspiration you need. The answer isn't always work harder. The answer is work smarter, work clearer, work more intelligently, slow down, take care of yourself so that you can sustain an ongoing output, right?
Yeah, I really like that. Sustainable success.
Right.
If we take the approach of some who advocate, working 60 hours a week and hustle, and that might work in the short term, or at least give you the illusion that a lot of activity is creating success, but it's not sustainable, is it?
No way. It wasn't for me.
Yeah, not for me either.
I mean, it didn't work for me. I had to change gears, or I assure you, Ralph, my business would have eaten me alive if I didn't shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the flip sides of success as we talk about building the business you need so you can live the life you want. I always go back and quote Michael Gerber, who says that if you don't design the business to give you the life you want, it'll do the opposite. It'll take the life you've got.
That's a perfect quote, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So, these highly successful people, businessmen, doctors with multiple medical patents, rock stars, divorcees, they've all got some level of success in their lives, and they come and they're like, make me bigger, better, stronger, faster might be the initial question. But then once we get down to it, it's just like, hey, you're being awfully hard on yourself. What would it be like to slow down a little bit inside and to begin to be generous with yourself and frame your mindset from the position of your own mastery? Why don't we find mastery, not more output, Ralph, more clarity?
Yeah, that's great. So that's kind of the genesis of this idea about refining, changing, and focusing on your inner stance.
For sure.
Yeah. So tell us, what is that? How do we define inner stance?
It's how you're being in the world. Who are you being? So if we look at a guy like LeBron James, or any Olympic athlete that could medal, any international grade Olympic athlete that could medal in his or her sport, what would be the difference? The training is the same. The experience is mostly the same. Their athletic and genetic capabilities are mostly the same, within 1% of each other. Mm-hmm. They beat each other all the time. There's not usually one like breakaway champion that is just unbeatable forever. So what would be the difference, Ralph? Wouldn't it be what they're thinking and feeling inside and their access to their mastery at any given moment? Wouldn't that be the difference in those individuals?
Yeah, I mean, all things being equal, I mean, at the level of an Olympic athlete, the difference in skill set, in terms of measuring, you're down to 1/10% or less,
yes,
or 1/10 of a second.
Exactly.
Even 1/100th of a second. So, if we're looking for some kind of a distinction, I think you're right. We gotta look somewhere besides just their physical skill set.
And you're exactly right. And I mean, to just magnify to that a bit further, how to, Ralph, I mean, we can find most of that on Google, can't we? Better marketing, more PR, more this, more that, more sales, more products, more stuff, more access to people.
Yeah, more clients. That's the big thing.
More
now.
clients. Yeah. But the thing is who am I being?
Mm-hmm.
Who is LeBron James when he walks onto the floor? He owns the floor. He owns it from his insides. And how does he get access to that clarity? You know where it starts? It starts by learning to be generous with yourself instead of judging yourself and beating up on yourself all the time. Clarity is created by beginning to be generous with yourself and accepting your state of mind as it is, and then forgiving it and asking yourself, okay, given what's happening, what do I want to create? Instead of spending all this time on how can I do this better, right? Giving myself a little space and a little credit so that I can produce a creative response to what's happening.
Very interesting. And now we talk a lot about clarity, and anyone who listens to this show knows that clarity comes up about every interview or every other interview as the first thing or one of the first things that people say that we lack and that we need to achieve is clarity.
Yes, sir.
You're saying that one of the first things we can do to create clarity is be generous with yourself. Describe that. What does that mean? What does that look like?
I talked to a guy today I've been having some conversations with. This guy has a giant patent in a field that helps handicapped people. He has a patent for a machine that goes on a wheelchair. He's a brilliant engineer, Stanford educated, brilliant in the gym. He's made enough money to retire. And here's what he said to me. He said, I think I'm thinking about another problem that I'd like to solve, but I just can't concentrate, and I just don't trust that I can solve it. He began to express to me, he's like, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. I have this problem I want to solve. It's like, but he's already, I don't know if I'm being clear about this, Ralph, but he's already judging himself about it. Yeah. I don't know if I can do it. He's already doubting.
He's prejudging his own ability before he's even.
Yeah, he's perfectly said. Perfectly said. Thank you. He's already prejudging. So it's like he's going to ask this brilliant machine, this brilliant awareness, this knowledge that he has inside of him. He's going to try to get it to work perfectly. But he's going to sit there at the rabbit hole waiting on new ideas. And every time they come out, he's going to bash them down with self-judgment. Does that make sense?
Kind of like whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like whack-a-mole. And I find this happens. Look, I'm a coach. I coach people all day long on this stuff. And you know what my coach does for me? Craig, you got to stop judging yourself. Mm. It's time to accept your state of mind as it is and forgive it in some way and find out what arises when you're not being hard on yourself. That's where performance comes from, is you don't linger on the trouble. You let the trouble go and you go in search for clarity.
Now that sounds kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? If we are not being generous with ourselves, or we are beating ourselves up, or a lot of people just express it as self-doubt or lack of confidence, or just not sure that they can deliver. But you're saying accept your state of mind as it is. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, so if I have a moment of doubt arise in me, and all I do is obsess on my doubt, then what am I magnifying?
Yeah.
Can LeBron James? He doesn't hit every shot he hits, every shot he shoots. If he runs down the court after he's missed something, and all he does is hate on himself, then what frame of mind is he in when he gets the ball again? Yeah. So this happens for all of us.
So that's the inner stance.
That's an inner stance. Yeah. It's who am I being? And mastery comes from ownership and being real. It's not pretending. It comes from ownership. It comes from emotional mastery. Okay, I thought that thought. I did that thing. I don't want to do it again. How can I make a better choice? It's not to run faster. Slow down. Recalculate. Calm down.
Yeah. So accept the state of mind as it is, and that's part of being generous with yourself, not beating yourself up, not prejudging your performance, certainly before you've even tried anything. And then when you try and fail, it's just accepting what has happened and then what? Moving on?
Yeah, making a new choice, finding your inspiration again. I would bet that a guy, I don't know LeBron James, but I would bet that his sense of mastery allows for failure. That's true mastery. That didn't work. He wouldn't say, I hate myself. I'm the worst player that ever lived. I'm too stressed to go to my next game. He wouldn't do any of that, I don't think. He might feel the inclination, Ralph, but mastery chooses. I am LeBron James. It's time for me to recover. He's not at war with himself inside.
That's a real critical distinction. And two thoughts occurred as you share that example. And one being, so many people, they don't even show up for the game.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even put themselves into the game. So that's a mindset, or that's an inner stance where they do not even show up. So, and I guess that's fear of failure, fear of success, whatever the fear is. The other thing that struck me about what you said is this concept of mastery, I want to explore what that means, because I think one way to get around this fear of I'm not good enough, or who am I to even show up? I think part of that, being able to accept your state of mind and even accept your failings and your imperfections, is with this mastery mindset that we are looking to be. What does that even mean? Does it mean being the best that there is, or does it mean being the best that we are capable of?
No such thing as the best there is.
Right.
Right? So the best there is the best me that there is.
Yeah. So
LeBron James is the best at his particular style of basketball. Einstein was a patent clerk, but he changed the nature of our understanding of the universe. So it's like he's unique. You, Ralph, are unique in all of history, in all of mankind, in the sum total of humanity's existence on this planet. There is not another individual that is exactly like you, with your thinking, your feelings, your particular skill set, your particular mental and emotional constitution. There's only you and your mastery of yourself.
And our experiences, and those are also the crucible that creates us as individuals, and how we choose to respond to those situations, because you can take a group of people, put them in the identical situation, and watch how different people respond very differently, depending on a lot of psychological factors. But this whole concept of seeing yourself, and I interview hundreds of people, not just here, but in other contexts. And some of them struggle with the idea of being an expert at something. And what we're talking about is going beyond just being an expert. It's seeing yourself as a master of something.
Absolutely. And once that begs the question, who am I being?
Mm-hmm.
So Ralph, how could you be an expert interviewer? Not to limit your talents, but in this context, you're an interviewer. You're a talk show host. If you were comparing yourself to every other host in the world, every other interviewer, you could never ever match them because you're not them.
Right.
So how is it that you can be your best? What's the best use of your voice, your understanding, your unique experience, your mindset? I mean, some people, Ralph, it's terrible. I mean, we have a hard time even feeling like we got permission just to get on the court, just like you said. Some people don't even want to join the game.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about it is our failures point us. They point us forward. They don't point to our brokenness. They point us to where we want to go by showing us where we don't want to go. Oh, I don't want to do that like that again. I might like to try that again. But see, most individuals, they tend to point the arrow back on themselves. Well, there's something wrong with me. Not necessarily. There may be something wrong with your thinking and your idea about yourself, but that doesn't mean you're broken. So that's what I help people find, is that voice inside that is clear, inventive, and spacious, and free of doubt. And when they doubt, I help them to embrace their doubt and reframe and learn from, so that they can find their clarity and their inspiration again. That's where mastery comes from, man.
Very powerful. So you are all about refining, changing, and focusing that inner stance. And I feel like now that I've got a really, really firm grasp of what that is. And maybe it's even deeper than mindset, because see what you think, because for me, mindset is basically a paradigm. It's how you choose to look at something. But inner stance is, as you say, who am I being? And that has to do,
exactly.
That's got to do with our identity. It's how we see, it's not just how we see the rest of the world. It's how we see ourselves and how we behave, how we respond to that.
Yeah. That's a very keen question. So as we spend a little time together, the people that I have the luxury of talking to every day, the people that I have prolonged relationships with, there is, there's the mindset, which is what's cycling through the thinking, right? Mm-hmm. Does that sound like an accurate?
Yeah.
It's the mindset. It's like what's cycling through your thinking. I'm thinking this, I'm feeling that, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. But as we start to look more carefully, we start to find out that it's how we respond to our thinking and feeling, which is where the most important part is. So we begin to ask something very deep. Who am I? Who is the one observing my thinking? Who is that one? So, Ralph, when you say, who am I? It's like, who am I really? As the observer of my thoughts, as the responder to my thoughts. So, I might ask you, Ralph, if I can see the train of my thinking, then I'm not on the train. Right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then that's where we begin to do the really deep work. And I'll tell you something, man. It's super, super powerful stuff, because it doesn't change like how you walk into work and sit at your desk. It doesn't just change that. It changes everything. It changes everything at one time, all at once. When people start to find out, who am I really? Who am I beyond my personal thinking, beyond the things and conditions of my life? Who am I really? And businessmen come in all the time, my friend, and they start out with saying, I need to improve my marketing. I need to make some money. And we end up asking the question, who am I really? And all of those things come from that question.
Wow. Powerful distinctions. I've been speaking with Craig Gore. I think he's an expert. I have no problem calling him an expert and a master on the subject of your inner stance. I think he has demonstrated that very clearly. Craig, our time is almost gone, but I want to ask, are you working on anything right now that's got you excited that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Thanks for asking. On a personal note, I live in Tennessee. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I have clients all over the world. But I spent 25 years in Los Angeles, so I'm working on splitting time here in the next year between Tennessee and North Central California. So that's what I'm doing personally. And then professionally, I'm just exploring one-on-one time with clients who are really ready for change, not somebody who needs it. If you need a therapist or you need a doctor, I'm not the guy. But if you want a coach, I'm the guy. One-on-one conversations, that's what I really celebrate these days in my world.
Yeah, very powerful. So if our listeners want to connect with Craig, his website is johncraiggore.com. It's just the way it sounds, johncraiggore.com. And we'll have that link up on the Rebelpreneur website as well.
Thank you.
Lots of food for thought here, Craig, and lots to chew on. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners before we call it a wrap?
Final thoughts. Thank you so much, Ralph, for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I would encourage everyone to know that they have everything they need available to them. It's an inside job. It's an inside job. So you can start today reprioritizing your lives. Ladies and gentlemen, start with me. Start with yourselves first. Prioritize yourselves first, others second, and work third, and see what starts to change.
Very powerful words of wisdom from Mr. Craig Gore, a personal coach for a broad range of clients working in a variety of areas, business, relationships, success, leadership, all because of helping people to refine, change, and focus their inner stance. And if you get that corrected, then everything else seems to find its place. So if you want to find out more, connect with Craig at johncraiggore.com. Craig, it's been a real pleasure to have you on Rebelpreneur Radio today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ralph.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.